Start. There we go. Let's just wait a minute, let a couple of people join in, and then I will start introducing you.
Perfect.
Awesome. I'm seeing people start to come in. That is great to see. Awesome. Let me get started then. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here and joining us at Amplify. I'm super excited to be introducing Michael Smith from the Institute of Automotive Excellence, who will be talking about mastering the multiverse, unlocking extraordinary futures as a multi-shop owner in today's session. So if you have any questions during the session, feel free to drop them down below. If we have time, we will go over them at the end. Otherwise, Michael will be in touch with answers as well. So yeah, I'm super excited for the session. I was just telling Michael how excited I am for this topic. It sounds really cool. So over to you, Michael. Let's get started.
Dua, thank you, and thanks everybody for joining us. It's a pleasure to be here. Those of you who've heard me before, I'm excited about our industry and where we're going. This is a great time to be in the business that we're in. Next 10 to 15 to 20 years is going to be Mr. Toad's wild ride. So let's just dig in, and I have lots of information to share. My model always is to put lots of things in front of you so that you can pull the things out of it that are of interest to you in particular. So we're gonna move relatively quickly, knowing the short time frame that we have, and I hope really enjoy ourselves. And again, any questions at the end, please do feel free to ask. And if we can get to them during the session, we will. Do us as if not, then we'll have an opportunity to follow up with you afterwards. So without further ado, let's dig in. I do want to start for those of you who don't know me, and I'm getting to meet more and more people. It's great. I didn't come from inside the industry. I wanted to give you a heads up. I bring a perspective from coming from outside. I grew up in the big consulting firms. Deloitte was my last stop, practice leader. I spent time in the private equity business as a C-suite exec in a holding company that had holdings on 6 continents. And I've started and sold multiple small businesses. So I come from outside the industry, but with sort of a perspective that I think is going to be helpful to us where we're going. So I just want to get that grounding with us. I like to start with a story of 3 brothers, all shop owners, and their dad sat down near the end of his life and said, "I want to bless you, boys, and I want to ask you for what you want." And the first brother said, "Dad, I want to be wealthy in my life." And his father said to him, "Hey, you're a shop owner. In your life, the way you're leading it, this is a good business to be in. It's a profitable business to be in. And you keep up what we've talked about, what I've taught you, and you will be a wealthy man." Son two, what do you want? Son two said, "I want to be healthy, Dad." And he said, "Well, I bless you with that." He said, "In addition to wealthy, because you're running a shop as well as your wealthy brother, you have a different perspective. You're looking at the humans in the business, not just the car fixing. And from that perspective, you have a healthy family, you're a healthy individual, your teams are healthy, their families are healthy, you're touching your community in a healthy way." The third brother, he said, "What would you like, son?" And the third brother said, "Dad, I want to be wise." And the father said, "Well, that makes my heart happiest of all, because in addition to being wealthy, running a good business, in addition to being healthy and having a human centric perspective on life, you're also going after the meaning of what this is all about. And in that, you will find wealth, you will find health, you will find wisdom as well for your existence." And so I like to start with that story because, in a way, it scales what it is that our industry is moving into relative to where we've been. And I like to put it this way: I came from outside this industry. I worked in 50, maybe 55 industry verticals other than ours before I got here about 9 years ago. And top 1% high performance organizations in any industry really speak 3 different business languages. I'm proposing that to us because I'm going to suggest that this is where we're going and what we're going to need to be considering as well as owners that want to play successfully in the future. Language 1 for us is the foundational excellence language. It's what probably everybody on this webinar knows. How do you fix cars profitably? How do you run a good shop? How do you How can you be consistent with your sales? How can you do good quality repairs with few returns? How can you manage your financials so that it's a profitable, good business and everybody gets paid and your customers get treated well? That's the wealthy model from the story that I told. A second language that comes on top of that, and again, this is for us fixing cars. It may be running a factory, it may be doing construction. Any other industry has the same foundational need. You got to have a strong business to build on. But level two is human high performance, because when you turn on the champions in your organization, you start drawing the rock stars, the unicorns in the industry to work for you. Your team performance, your team quality goes up, then your customer quality goes up, and the impact that you have on the marketplace goes up. That's the healthy human component from our story, level two. The top level was this long-term value proposition, and that is the wisdom level of, okay, I've got my foundational excellence built, my human high performance is turned on. Now there's nothing stopping me, should I choose to multiply and scale my business to get bigger and have a bigger multiplied impact on the world that I'm touching. You get back to the meaning questions at that level, and in fact, I'll unpack that a little bit here as we go. So these three business languages are different, and I know all of us speak language one. Language two is the language of champions, high performance coaching, and being the perennial winner in your league, if you will. Language three is where we're headed now with the private equity folks that are here. Some of our peers are becoming consolidators, not just multi shop operators. This is a multi shop session, but I want to take it a step further and say multi shop can be two shops, multi shop can be three. But we're in a position where we could ramp ourselves to have 20 or 30 or 50 or more. And we know how. We've done it in multiple industry verticals. The methodologies are here, and it's not a mystery of how to do that. So it's a different way of thinking, thinking like an investor, not like a car service company. The implications are, what I want you all to think about is, you owners that are out there that are listening, think in terms of legacy. What's the vision that you have for the impact of your entire career? That leads us back to your exit strategy. When do you want out? How much do you want out of it? What kind of a an exit are you thinking about? What's the payout that your business has to put into your bank account for you to be successful and in fact, be able to get by, right? Not just get by, but how much wealth do you want? And then the succession strategy is, how do you get your teams ready? How do you turn this over to the next owner so that it succeeds? That these are some of the exit implications that come from the choices of where we want to land on this one, two, or three level. The necessary preparation then is, once the stuff in the yellow box is identified, we have to get ready. And the way we've always done that is to have a good as is understanding. It's a snapshot of what you really have in your hand today, honestly, not not in a sort of a self-deceiving way, but really understanding your strengths, your weaknesses, what your future opportunities are. Then the second bullet is to be futuring. What does it look like in the end? What does it look like at the end? Then you take the as is and the to be, and then you build the business strategy in between. I know what I have, I know what I want, now I've got to get there from here. And a huge component of what we're talking about in the future is relational networking. And I'm going to unpack that, because as we're going forward in the change that's coming to our industry, being connected is going to be critical to you having maximum leverage in your future. There's seven trends I'm going to touch on today because it really lays out kind of where we are in the industry. The first one, I'm going to talk briefly about the automotive manufacturers, the technology questions and struggles that they have. I'm not going to dwell too long, but it's a good baseline to then talk about what's happening in the aftermarket overall. The OEMs themselves, the dealerships, the parts companies are all consolidating, as are we. So that becomes the second topic. The third is the outside investors are here. The guys with big, big, big money are here, and they're interested in us, right? We are ready for roll up, and so they want to participate in that. I want to talk a little bit today about competitive advantage. We don't tend to have strong, unique competitive advantage. I want to talk about why that's important. I want to talk about being a human-centric company to get to that second level of turning the championship factor on in your company. I want to talk about the power of mastery and how raising up rock stars internally, how having the best people in the business will be a key to you being able to succeed. And it all comes down to this. The people who are going to win at the top of the game are going to have breakthrough strategies, not typical strategies, not slightly interesting strategies, but ones that are way out ahead of our industry and leaning into where we're going in the future to get there first and lead our marketplaces to be the dominant player, if you will. And we want to sort of share some of those perspectives with you and also let you know how you get to there from here has been tried and proven over and over again. So this is not mysterious stuff. It is interesting. Automotive technology, these are the big issues. You've heard this before. CASA, connectivity, alternative drivetrains, shared mobility, sometimes called mobility as a service. So it can be CASA, can be CAMA, and autonomous driving. And these are the big issues technologically that the OEMs are working on at the same time that because of the environmental issues, they're sort of cheapening the manufacture of their engines, cheapening the manufacturers of their cars so that the cars aren't lasting as long as they were before. And I've spent long afternoon yesterday with two super high-end owners in our business talking about how the quality of the equipment itself is going down over time in an effort to meet environmental standards and lighten up the cars and all that. So you all know this better than I do. The OEMs are in a crazy position now trying to figure out what do I do with all this stuff. Here's the matrix, and this is a way to look at it, is the vertical axis, the up and down, is whether this CASA trend goes fast at the top or slow at the bottom. And do the OEMs have the touch points under their control throughout that new system? On the right-hand side, they do. On the left-hand side, they don't. So here's the point. As you go around, you don't have to read these things, but the idea in the top right, they would love to own the user-centered ecosystem, all the products, all the services in both the traditional OEM business and all the new segments that are coming. This is the one they want. And again, why? Because the money is there. If you look at the tiny blue, light blue column on the left side, the most profits that will flow to the OEMs come from them being in control of a fast changing, all the touch points model. They're not going to get there from here. And they know that because it's too complicated and there's too much technology involved and there are too many high dollar players that are running down the rails of different pieces that are going to have to come together in the future that we're in. So they're panicking. And I'm not saying they're panicking and running away. They're panicking in the strategy room saying, what the heck do we do with all this? And this is part of our life, right? What happens, this is them. I stacked them in terms of global market share. I thought this would be interesting for us to take a peek at. Guys, look at the profit margins. Look at the profit margins, with the exception of Honda, who has the capacity, who is running at a level of profit margin that's similar to what we can run when we run tightly run, well-run shops, 15%, 20%, 25% nets. Look at the OEMs. Look at Nissan, look at BMW, right? Look at General Motors. So these guys are scrapping and scraping and trying to figure out how to make more money for their shareholders, but they're really thinking, boy, this is changing fast and we have a lot of decisions to make. When we ask them, what are the OEM future challenges that you have? Where are you focusing your energy? The X's are in the boxes. You can see the columns. Most of them have been and continue to focus on this alternative drivetrain question. What are we going to do with EVs? Is it hybrids? Is it hydrogen? Is it something else? And you can see how all the OEMs are scattered in different places based on who they are, what they're struggling with. And again, what this says is that the playing field of the OEMs is dynamic, it's changing, and there's no real straight up pattern here other than the alternative drivetrain question that they're struggling with. Guys, we have to fix the mess that they make in the cars that they make. This is the conversation I had yesterday, right? Again, you know it better than I do. So this is inherently interesting to us for the years to come. What do transportation consumers want? The traditional buyers of cars, they want convenience and flexibility, and it may not be car ownership. In fact, it's increasingly not that. They just want to get to a car, use it, and be done with it. Two is sustainability. The environmental conversation, despite the change in administration in the United States, has not gone away. The WEF didn't just roll up the concepts with BlackRock and say, we're not going to care about this stuff anymore. Quite the contrary, it's gone quiet, but it's still on the board and it hasn't come off and probably won't. And then the digital engagement component is just this. The users want digital experiences that are seamless. And they don't want to go buy a car in a dealership. They want to be able to buy it online. That's how they roll. That's what they want. So, what the governments have proposed puts a different kind of pressure, right? So that's the customer pressure on the OEMs. What the governments have proposed is the emission standards issues that we just talked about, tightening them, tightening them, tightening them, trying to drive from a government perspective decisions at the OEM level on our behalf as consumers of the types of vehicles that they're even going to be suggested to build for us. Number two is autonomous vehicle legislation. What, how, and when and where do we let these things go? Waymo is in a half a dozen cities with fully autonomous vehicles, not just delivering pizzas, but doing rideshare services. Uber is involved with them now, using the Uber platform to order Waymo vehicles. And again, more expanded city experiments. They've got millions and millions of autonomous miles under their belt at this point. So this stuff's moving forward, and governments like that for this 15-minute city idea where there's no independent drivers in the downtown, kind of a model of the future that the globalists have in mind. And then finally, consumer protection. Regulations ensuring transparency and fairness of all the online transactions. The government's in the middle of this too. We do know that the dealership models in being pinched at this point. All the downward trends that we see through 2030, the dealerships are making good money now. I'm going to come to the dealerships in a minute, but all the trends are headed down. I'll get to the dealers consolidation here in a little bit. This is the distribution projection between this year in the middle column and the right column is by 2040, 15 years from now. Look at how many cars are going to be sold through dealerships, if the dealerships even exist in their form, right? But less than half of what's being sold now. Direct to consumer sales goes up significantly, 2 to 3 times. Online car retailers, subscription services, the Ubers and that, again, continuing to grow, and even peer-to-peer car sharing, picking it up on the corner with your credit card, like those little scooters that we have, and returning it. So look at the model, guys. It's different than the model we've grown up with. And when we start to look out 5, 10, 15 years, this is going to affect us too. Now, will the dealers have repair services? Don't know. Here's the numbers, right? Those 4 quadrants from the prior chart. This is the quadrant where the top right corner where they have the touch points under control. The service department is worth to them, the service that they provide is worth just under 9% in terms of the revenue that goes to them. But you can see if they lose control of the touch points, the numbers across the bottom fall significantly. So will there be dealers? Will they look the same? And will they have service departments the way they have them? Maybe not. What does all this say from the automotive manufacturing, the technology standpoint? One, the assumptions that we grew up with are changing radically. Two, our role is changing along with them, and we have to be ready for that in terms of how do you train your people? What do you say to your markets? How do you present yourself? If you're going to go into multi-shop mode, what are you going to buy? The same old thing, or are you going to do something different? And again, that's back to the breakthrough unique strategy question we'll get to later. Market segments, our industry is evolving. The dealerships are changing. The Searses of the world are largely out of the business. The big boxes are here. The strong independents that we are here. Will the dealers be the third real alternative? Don't know. We'll see. And finally, we're all going to need a breakthrough strategy. I'm going to hammer on this over and over again. The geographic defense that we had to be a mile or two from our competitor, and we just sucked that circle in the clients inside that circle into our circle and made them our customers. That ain't going to hold up in the consolidating world that's coming, and we'll get to that. Okay, so we're going to have to change this. The macro economy around automotive is revolutionizing our aftermarket's foundations, and we're going to need to be ready. Number two is the consolidation concept. And I want to come back. And again, if you've seen this, just see it as a review. If you haven't seen this, I want to put the numbers in front of you. All industries in the United States, just over 6 million privately held US businesses. That's what most of us are. 67% of those by statistics are boomers. That's 10 trillion in wealth, or 4 million privately owned businesses. Boomers are in 2025 between the ages of 61 and 79. In 2016, 8 years ago, 3/4 of them wanted to be gone within 5 years. A lot of us are still here. Why? Because of COVID, because of the money that the government offered to them, because of the unknown about the political environment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the boomers have been hanging on. And what's the point? When private equity looks at the boomers and says, hey, this is all industries now, guys, and says, are these individually owned, these privately owned companies going to be worth buying? The private equity estimates are that 80 to 85% of the 6 million businesses will not have enough value built into them to be able to be worth picking up. So in the boomer sense of the 4 million boomers that are going million businesses that the boomers are going to walk away from, 80 to 85% of them are not worth buying because the owners used them like a cash machine. That's of the all industries together, 3.2 million businesses, 8 trillion in wealth that will either sell at a deep discount or simply lock the door and walk away. Our statistics are this. Best guesstimate is about 235,000 companies in the business as of the stats of last year. That's 100 and almost 60,000 boomer owned, maybe more in our industry, some think. 80% failure rate, if we stay on the low end of that, means 130,000 competitors will be either not worth, they won't be worth buying. And they're either going to go out of business, which if you look around, you'll see that happening right now, or they're going to sell at a discount to somebody who basically buys it because they don't know any better, a la maybe key employees that they have. And what it means is with all this turmoil that the employees, that the customers, and that the markets that these companies that have been participating in, their component of it will be up for grabs. So it's a heck of an opportunity for us that will be very, very strong in the future for us to move into. Just so that I want to put one more concept down here to not shake everybody up, but to just understand it. Everybody wants out. We talked about that. The net worth, 80% of owners have 90+% of their net worth wrapped up in their business. So how you retire, having this under control is going to be a big issue for the majority of people who are privately owned business owners. Owner strategy stats are this, right? You can read them yourself. 67%, two-thirds don't know what their exit options are. 83% have no transition plan written down. 93% have had no thinking about what they're going to do after they retire. And here's the scary stat, the last one. 75% of owners profoundly regret exiting within 12 months of the exit because of the poor way that they did it. So I don't want any of us to be those people. I'm 65. Next to this industry. I'm in it. I'm going to be here for as long as I can stand up and keep working. I don't want us to be those 75%. I want us to be the 25% that did it right. Family business transactions are fantastic, second generation, third and fourth generation, but they're not guaranteed. And the stats show that 70% of second generation businesses fail, guys. 88% of third generation businesses fail, and 97% of fourth and following generation businesses fail. It doesn't mean they have to fail, but it means you can't just hand the keys to the kids and have them intuitively take it and run it the way we did. The lessons we learned hard, we got to teach them. We got to help them. We got to have a succession plan for them if the family transaction is going to occur successfully. Back to the dealerships. The dealerships are rolling up at this point. They're rolling up like our industry is rolling up, like collision rolled up. And here's what it looks like. Profits for the dealers in the last few years have been super, super high, but changes in the wind, and everybody who owns a dealership knows it. So the top 10 dealership groups now, the consolidation groups, own 10% of the roughly 17,000 dealerships in the US. It's at an all-time high and growing. Lithia and Penske have about 300 rooftops each at this point, and they're leading the charge. The large public dealership groups are intent on expanding and increasing and looking for regional bases. This roll-up is underway. Small to mid-sized groups with multiple rooftops in a single area are the prime acquisition targets. That's who the consolidators want. They want a couple of dealerships, a dozen dealerships in a single unit, and they want to buy that and get all the rooftops in that way. And it's the same model that we have. The buyers have come in from outside the industry. It's private equity, it's family offices, and they want to buy up the dealerships. Why? because they see the dealership question mark at the end of the day, but they want to own that distribution mechanism so that whatever direction it takes in the future, they have scale so they can move into that future and be a dominant player at that point. So this is forward-looking investment, but again, it's happening at the dealership level. The parts companies are doing the same thing. You probably know this. Worldpac was sold by Advance to Carlisle for $1.5 billion. Concept was Advance's shrinking back to the retail core of their blended box business. Worldpac turned around and closed, what, 700 stores after the Carlisle acquisition to streamline that as well. Genuine Parts Company, Napa's buying back their jobbers across the US. Those of you who work with Napa, you'll know what I mean when we say that. They're converting them into company-owned stores. I'm not saying I know any inside information, but that smacks a lot at the Genuine Parts Company level about them too, considering this concept of possibly, changing their business model too. Let's leave it at that. This is what's happening in our industry. These are private equity investors. These are platforms that have come into our business that are already on the ground. I built the straightaway one with some clients of mine. They're up and running now. Of course, a lot of you have heard of Sun Automotive. These are the big guys that are out there, most of them anyway. There are others as well, but they're scattered in different geographic locations, and it's happening. It's underway right now. My role was to work with these companies that you see in this press release, the beginning of it anyway. And we went out and talked to 17 private equity firms, found our favorite, made a deal with them, and then I stepped back and let them do their project. I facilitated the conversation. We got their exit strategies, legacy concepts, M&A, education under their belt. We turned them into high performance companies as best we could. And then the private equity project that we put together, it was what we took to the private equity world. So my point of this is simply to say how you get there from here and what the future looks like. As far as we know, I'm back up a slide. This is the straightaway is the only fully owner driven project that's on this page where the private equity was brought in from outside by the owner group, rather than having the investors come in and make the first step. So this is a model that we have that we believe in for our industry, and it's part of our conversation that we're all going to have in the near term going forward. Stages of consolidation in any industry look like this. Stage one is just a lot of little mom and pops, if you will. We don't like that term internally, but mom and pops is the way the investment world describes how our industry is at this point. A lot of small business owners with a handful of locations or less. We are about right here. Those platforms I just mentioned are now starting to hit the ground. So the platforms are being built, platforms are acquiring. M&A and integration is what the game is there. Stage three is where the platforms sell to platforms, and the platforms that get sold roll up to bigger platforms. So stage three is where there are fewer players and they're getting bigger. And stage four is where there's a couple of three, four players at the end that represent 25 to 30% of the industry each. And then the game is different because the owners at that point are the BlackRocks and the Vanguards and the State Streets, and their business strategy changes. They get into defense mode, maintaining it, and their main job is to manage the regulatory environment so they can keep running it profitably for their shareholders. So here we are, guys. Like it or not, we all say, we don't all say, a lot of people say, I don't like the corporate thing. Totally get it. This is what's going to happen to us. It's happened again in 50, 60 other industry verticals, and it's our time. It's our time in history. Key predictions with all this, what does it mean to us? Rapid consolidation means that there's be a shrinking number of competitors, increasing scale. They'll be steadily larger, each of them with greater market footprints. Complexity, they'll have larger teams and larger customer bases and larger numbers of suppliers and vendors and all that. And in the middle of all of that, it means that they're going to be more sophisticated. And so I want you to look at the little bullets and think about this. They're going to know how to grow and expand. They're going to be doing serious leadership and human development and high performance training. Their teams, how they run teamwork, the productivity metrics, and driving that with internal accountability, getting the rock stars on their teams. Capital access to grow. The money wants to come into the industry. They're looking for hands to put it in. Revenue generation, operations, financial management competencies, what we know today, private equity world plays in a different financial language, as I mentioned earlier, and we're going to need to learn that language to be able to thrive, even if we're not doing it ourselves, to understand through their eyes what's happening around us with these bigger competitors that are going to be forming around us if we decide to stay small. And finally, legal and risk management. It gets more complicated the bigger we get. So just keep this in mind. Where we're going is this: the single shop will, and this is not me bringing good news, this is me telling you the truth. The single shop will unfortunately be increasingly disadvantaged over time as this consolidation in our industry progresses. It's just the truth of it. And we've got to put it out there so we all get it in our heads. The third thing I'm going to talk about in detail, and then I'm going to bring it to a sort of a rounded conclusion here with a quick clip, is basically this idea of outside investment. And I want to acknowledge this, that the big money guys are here. The capital sources that we have always known are out there. When we got into the business, typically you probably were self-funded if you started it yourself, in your garage, or you bought a small old gas station or some such thing. Maybe you borrowed money from family or friends, but the concept in the finance business is that's called organic, and that's how most of us started. You could have done owner financing, perhaps. Maybe you bought it from the owner that owned it before you and put some small percentage down, and they let you pay it off over time, whatever. Those three bullets are how we've tended to get into it. Those of us who've gone to a multi-shop model know going to a bank, you start with your retail bank. The commercial bank is the bigger business version of that. Once you grow and scale, you go past a single loan, you get into the commercial bank section. But let me say this about venture banks down: equity investments. Venture banks are banks that build commercial banks that have retail front ends. Venture banks are roll-up banks, just like we're talking about roll-ups in our industry. Bank of America was not always a Bank of America location, was not always that. Usually the way they got there was it was a local bank, then it became a regional bank, then it became a semi-national bank, and then here comes Bank of America and buys them up, and it's all about scale. It's the same thing. So the venture banks are also they're private equity investors in the banking business. If you go up the right channels in the banks and you have an impressive enough project, the venture investors behind the banks may also be wanting to do a private equity deal with you, not under the bank, maybe under the venture bank, but certainly not through the banking system. It would be more of a private equity deal. Drop down to the bottom level when we're talking about not having debt, but talking about giving away equity. There's four classifications that we typically talk about. Angels fall in love with you. Venture capital is more technology driven and super high risk stuff with massive returns. Really, the window that's interested in us is private equity and family offices. And those are people that are they're sitting on the family office money is money that's been made by the family in the past, and they invest in their own ventures to multiply the family money. Private equity is groups of people who come together, and the private equity firm will get investors to pool their money and go make investments on behalf of that. And the leverage in all of the equity investments is massively different than the stock market, if you will, in the private side. We'll get into the details later. If you ever want to have a separate session on this stuff, I'd be happy to come do it. But what we're really looking at is the big money at the bottom of the list is here, and they really want to do business with us. I have many relationships with these private equity firms, and they're continuously asking, Michael, do you have a project for me yet? Michael, I want a big project. Can you take me to a big project? We're hungry, hungry, hungry for this industry. So, folks, if you are interested in this, understanding what it's about, kicking the tires on it before you commit to it, this is where we're headed. The prior chart's about the way the industry is going to roll up, and I just want you to know the money folks are here. Now, I want to say this: there's no shortage of people also standing here that are going to offer to help you. And all I want to say about this is caveat emptor, or buyer beware, right? There are brokers out there that will say to you, I want to help you get your business ready for sale. I'll get you the best price possible. Great. A lot of them have great sales pitches. I will say about brokers, like I'd say about anybody in our industry too. There are great players in the brokerage business, and there are some really not great players. There are ethical brokers, and there are incredibly non-ethical brokers. And so please just be careful. If you want to talk about an option that you have in your hand, pick up the phone, call me, and we'll talk about it. Private equity is the same way. Private equity scales, right? There's little investors that have a couple of million to spend. They want to play on the low end of this and work their way up into it. The jumbo market are multi-billion dollar investment funds that can buy the biggest projects you can imagine. And don't forget the REITs, the real estate investment trusts are out there, just like the private equity guys that would look into your business. The REITs want to buy your property from you because there are even automotive service industry focused REITs that are collecting shops, if you will, to be the landlords to build scale. So, guys, this scale game, like I said, 50, 60 other industry verticals, it is everywhere around us, the OEMs, the REITs, the aftermarket. And so we're in it. It's our life now. And that's why I'm here, is just to share this stuff with you. What I want to say today as a part of our conversation is please don't wait to the end. The traditional approach to exit planning is this, right? You build the business or you buy it, you run it. Here we are today. You don't do any of this conversation until the very end when you're like, you know what? I'm tired. My wife's giving me a hard time. My husband, they want me out of the business. They just want to have some life left at the end of this 30, 40-year investment we made. And then you figure out what's available to you at the time and you exit. And I put $1 sign there because that's our typical way of doing it. And you get 2.75 to 3 times net, maybe 3.25 if you have a super shiny polished shop. And that's kind of how it goes. Here's the deal. The better way to do it is to say this. Let's optimize the goal. Let's start this discussion today. So we find ourselves in the same place, but here's the point. We build our exit strategy now. You do it now. Will you change it and modify it before the end? Absolutely, you will. But you have a concept of where you're headed as soon as you can get that done. Then you invest in the business according to your exit strategy, right? You're aiming at something specific. You're not shotgunning the entire sky. You're sniping at this point. So you invest in the business, you expand the business. We're talking multi-shop now, potentially, right? Invest in the business, expand the business. It becomes a virtuous cycle of investment. Virtuous meaning that every one of these that you add adds value from an investment perspective to what you have. Now you're near the end. You have a transaction strategy, not an exit strategy. Why? Because you've built your exit strategy already. Now you're looking at who's the best suitor for me, and you go out and make the best deal that you can make. Then you get out of the business, and I'm not kidding. The dollar signs could go around this piece of paper and come back and start on the other on this other end over here again, because there's that much potential. And again, it depends on how much you want to scale and what version of the exit that you want, and whether you want to go big and go into private equity. Guys, you can start putting zeros on the end of your original expectations and get there from here. And so this becomes very unique to each of you owners that are out there, and very customized, if you will, also based on geography, also based on those relational networks that I talked about, the other owners that you know. So we're in a new time where these are new conversations that go beyond the mastermind group that tells you how to run your shop in a more efficient way. This is that third layer of language out there past the championship second level into the future of, do you or don't you want to be multi-shop? Do you or don't you want to go big with multi-shop and actually become a consolidator yourself before you sell into the consolidation system? Again, right? Different conversations than historically. What this means is there's exponential growth at the top 1% level. There will be empires that rise. We're helping to build some of them. Increasing access to capital. They've got money. They want us. New business strategies, languages, competencies we've been talking about. You will learn them internally. You will expose yourself to them externally, and you will be able to have the conversations at the level of the people in their language that they need to have, that you want to have with them. There's new organizational dynamics in this, dominant owner mindset shift. I'll say this quickly. You need to think of yourself as a private equity investor. In my little family story, it's that black wise box rather than down at the simply wealthy box at the bottom, right? We're not car repair people. We're private equity investors who happen to fix cars. It's a mindset shift, okay? Back to the trends. We handled these three. Now I'm going to hit these three quickly because of our time frame. I want to end with breakthrough strategy and how important it is that we have all these things in our heads when we put together what we're going to do to be different in the markets that we're in to succeed in the way that we want to. Mastery, human centricity, and competitive advantage. I'm going to hit each of those on one slide to get to breakthrough strategy. Back to this, right? We've talked about it. Back to this. You've got to have foundational excellence, then add on human high performance, and then go to long-term value. I'm going to get to the human high performance part now. Mastery is one component, right? We are familiar with the mastery track in terms of the technicians. But mastery is something that every one of us does in every aspect of our life, personal life, marriage, being a parent, being a neighbor, being a son, being a daughter, whatever, being a cousin, being with a friend group, right? We master our work, we master profession, we master learning, we master sports, we master everything. Here's the point, right? Masters are different than um, journey people. They're different than apprentices. This leads us to the human centric component, right? And again, I can unpack mastery, human centricity, and unique competitive advantage in great depth. For now, we just want to say this. The why based organization where the organization has identified its meaning, is focused on building a company that it presents in the marketplace for employment and in the marketplace for customers touching your community. The why-based company has a chance to draw the masters in the industry to work for us and the covenant level customers in our communities to come and be our clients, our customers. The how level companies are most appealing to the journey person level and the committed customer, and the what driven companies are really where the apprentices live and the transactional client customers live. So here's my point. Most companies in any industry are what based. It's all about the jobs and the tasks. Guys, I have to say it, it's kind of how we've seen our industry before. How based are okay, we are different. There is a differentiation. There is something unique and better here in terms of the value proposition. But the highest level here to get the masters, to get the rock stars, to get the unicorns to come work for you. And then when you have them to be able to get these long-term loyal brand ambassador customers to come to you, you need to become a why-based company. We can show you how to do that. We have many clients we've done it for, and we're continuing to help others do it as well. This is the competitive advantage thing you need to see. If you ask private equity in our industry, and these are automotive aftermarket concepts here, 2 to 3 times net down the lower little barrel down there. 2 to 3 times your net profit is what you'll tend to get paid for a regular shop that runs like an auto repair shop. That's your tangible assets dialed in, profitable sales, good quality work in the back with limited returns, and a decent profit margin at the net level. That'll get you 2 to 3 times. But if the private equity firms look in and see these four things, they're going to give you more attention. They're going to give you a better price. This is the intangible assets, your social capital. Consider it your brand, your culture, and your market reputation. Your human capital. Do you have the rock stars working for you? Customer capital. Do you have the loyal brand ambassadors that are your captive customers, if you will? And then have you dialed those three things in institutionally so that the next owner, a la the private equity investor, can get that working for them profitably, just like it has for you? That will get you a completely different set of multiples along with scale. So this is what I'm saying, guys. There's a whole different way of thinking about this multi-shop, multiverse concept. Jimmy, thank you for the title. This is the idea, right? This is not the same world. This is going in multiple directions compared to where we've been before. So I'm watching the time. I'm going to bring us home in under control. There's two business models we use, and I'm not going to share them with you in detail here, but I'm going to say this. Investors think differently. They think in terms of value. They don't think in terms of function. You guys as owners, you folks that are on here, male and female, you folks that are owners need to think like investors at a value perspective level. Then you have to go back and you have to run your business like a CEO with your leadership team to be functionally successful. These two models, I'm going to flip back and forth to prove a point, run parallel to each other. They're not different in terms of freestanding. They're connected to each other. And we've tended to run right here. as a functional company without much consideration for the value perspective. The world we're moving into, the way you do yourself the greatest benefit is that you see your company as an investment, and it's an investment that does the functional stuff really well. You got to do both. And the point of that is to say, this is where we come back to what's our unique value proposition. You need razor sharp clarity about what makes you different than everybody else in your marketplace, and we can help you get there, right? First of all, in the functional business, right, the first five things are the money in the front door and the work that you do and happy customers. The infrastructure behind you is here too. These are areas where you can have a unique value proposition component. You jump to the value proposition model, right? The investor version of this, and these are the areas that you build value into. So I'm saying to you, those two models together, these 17 components that are here, we owe it to ourselves to drill down and figure out what can I do to have a unique strength, to have a unique value proposition for my company that puts me in the greatest stead in the meantime doing business in my marketplace, and in the long run building value for my final, if you will, transition out of the business to the next owner, whatever that looks like. And for you folks who aren't owners that are listening to this, understanding that this is the pathway that our industry is going down, and understanding that your owners that you work for are going to increasingly be learning this stuff. Guys, jump on board with this, because your careers as folks rising through this industry are going to be no top ended, right? There's no cap anymore. There's no ceiling on what we can do in this industry. And if I were a young man or a young woman in this business at this point, I would be latching onto this learning to figure out how I want to be in the middle of this, because this industry will have as much opportunity as any other one I know in the next 10, 15, 20 years. And so I'm here because I don't want to be anywhere else. This is going to be a great place for us to be, and we're going to have a lot of fun, and there's going to be a lot of success and a lot of change that's coming, and it'll be a great ride together. What does this all mean? You got to have a breakthrough strategy. Business as usual is just flat out dead. There's new pathways. The leaders in each marketplace are going to set and drive their future. I want the people on this call to be among those who are the leaders in your marketplace. Change is here, guys. You can be an ostrich and put your head in the ground. It ain't going anywhere, right? This is going to happen to us whether we like it or not. I don't like the corporate stuff. I totally understand it. Done wrong, it's horrible. But let me tell you something. It's going to happen. It's happened over and over and over again. In the dynamics of where we are, it's going to happen to us too. So I say, let's take mastery of it. I say, let's build models that are beneficial to us. I say, let's get together and figure out how to do this in a way that the legacy we leave, that we care about, the folks at the top end of this business, what we care about is what we have as a legacy that we roll into the investment community. And we only work with investment partners that share the values that we have, that share the legacy perspectives we have, and let the sharks out there go eat themselves. Let's find the investors who believe what we believe, and together, let's have our industry be different and us not get run over in the process like it's happened over and over again. Time is urgent, I say. Time and tide wait for no man, Chaucer. Guys, don't sit back and go, wow, this is interesting, or oh, this is scary. I guess I'll get to this at some point. No, no, no. You got to dig into it now, okay? The forerunners in each market will determine the future of their market. I want that to be you guys. And together as a group, the future of our industry across the US. We can control this to a point, right? To a point where we've sold out to the corporate guys. And I'm not being silly here, but we can take this longer than the other industries have been able to do it. And we can make it better if we're involved in it proactively. Early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. Benjamin Franklin. I love all this stuff, right? So let's do it all. Let's be healthy. Let's be wealthy. Let's be wise. Let's learn the three languages, and let's bring it around to be able to do what we want to do in our marketplace for the right reasons. And then we're going to win in the process of doing that too. Last slide. Change in the marketplace is accelerating. It's here. It's not going away. We got to deal with it. Breakthrough strategy. You're going to have that to guide your own sustainable success. And healthy, empowered humans, I'm going to tell you straight up, all the science shows it, are your greatest source of competitive advantage. Not equipment, not technology, not lifts, right? Not marketing. I hate to say it for all the folks who are listening, and that's your focus. The humans are the leading edge of this, and every industry that's turned the human component on, those companies that have done that have been the leaders that change the future. So seize the day. This is the time. This is me. I'm just putting it up here. If you want to get to me, there's my phone, my email address. Reach out. I'll reach back. And at this point, I think I'm done, Dua. So I appreciate this. I think we got it in with 2 minutes of questions to go, or no questions at this point. But I really, again, folks, thank you so much for giving us and me the privilege to come and really just share our heart with you, and hope there was some good information that you picked up something you want to dig into a little further in your life. So I wish you all the best.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. I really
Absolutely.
enjoyed that session. I think I can speak for everyone that there were some great insights and takeaways in there. For any of you who might have missed out snippets here and there, I know a lot of you are at the shop now. This session will be available on demand, so you can come back, watch it in the next 60 days whenever you'd like. I'd also just like to take a minute to say thank you to the Institute for being a platinum sponsor. We have a few minutes until our next set of sessions starts, so do head over to the exhibit hall, check out their booth. They have even more great resources over there, and you can learn more about them on that booth as well. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Michael, for this amazing session.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks all.